Welcome to the St. John Genealogy Project webcast. Today we will be exploring some lesser-known aspects of the St. John family, uncovering their fascinating stories and ancestral connections. Good morning. Long time no chat, I guess. If anybody's here, feel free to let yourself be known in the chat. Today we're going to talk about the long-awaited haplogroup SMP that was made public a couple weeks ago for descendants of Mathias III St. John. So before we had two SMPs here. I'm not sure if you can see the screen. So this area right here that I'm highlighting. So we had two, now we have three, and I'm going to show you how they fit. But what I wanted to point out was that they have aged our haplogroup. They're now back to the 1600s. They originally had us between like 1750 and 1850. And then when we got these two, they started to push us back to 1700. And now with the new one, we have, we're back to 1650, which is rounded up from 1633. And it's based on the new haplogroup for Mathias III. And there's one yet unnamed lineage, and I'm thinking this is my brother. I think if I get a second test subject for him, that we will form another haplogroup. But anyway, so I have this thing that I've been working on in Canva, and basically it's a quick way to see how these two lineages exist and why Matthew and Mathias are not the same man. I mean, it's been like 2013, 2014 when I first started to notice the DYS 439 YSTR marker was 11 for everybody in Captain Samuel's group. And, you know, everybody kept saying, oh, that's normal. That's normal. You can have a GD of 1 and it be normal. And which is true. I mean, it could just have been a random mutation. But the fact that it was in the first 12 markers really bugged me, because for as long as I have known about DNA, they said if you match in the first 12 markers, that's your paternal line. That goes back thousands of years. So why did we have a mutation there? And so it bugged me. And then, of course, they have, you know, upgraded the standards, and we're now up to, 800 markers. And so, of course, the science has evolved, and I have kind of just, sat back and waited to see what would happen with this. And we have another group of St. John's that also have mutations in the first 12 markers. And it has me now wondering if they, too, belong to a different lineage. And that's why we're not seeing another haplogroup until they upgrade. So I'm going to look more into that. But anyway, I wanted to show why Samuel couldn't possibly be descended from Mathias III. Now this, I've updated this to say that this SMP haplogroup was formed between circa 1633, and I have said that it could not be now formed before or after 1747, because that's the shared ancestor of the two test groups. So this one could be up to 1747. and then back to 1650 thereabouts. So I mean, there is still a slight possibility that we might see Samuel jump under here, but with the documentation and everything else that's going on, I highly doubt it. So I mean, if this were true, Mathias III was the father of Samuel, it would blow my mind at this point, because everything is pointing to Samuel being the son or the descendant of Matthew. And then, Matthew was given a land grant in 1622 to Kings County, Ireland, which is where I think the Longford, Ireland branch is going to come out of. So I'm expecting the new Argentina test subject to match us here. And if that's the case, then that's pretty much going to solidify it. But in the meantime, if we could get more people under Mathias II to upgrade their kids to Big Y, we could definitely narrow this down even further, I think. Because right now they're still showing high level, and we're now down between 1633 and 1747 on this line. Now the thing is I already know these guys over here, they cannot be any earlier than the early 1700s, because Samuel was born in 1700 to 1705. Job was around 1719 or 1719 to 1720, and Ebenezer was in that same period, maybe up to 1723. But anyway, all of these are forming their own unique haplogroups, and because of that, we know that they don't rest any further, or any, let me think of the words I want to say. We know that these SMPs are born at least around the early 1700s. And these should still be forming siblings if they go up to 1747. But if it goes back to the 1630s, then there is no way that Samuel descends from Mathias III. And I'm sure that was really confusing to hear, and I'm really sorry. But anyway, I'm excited to have this new haplogroup. If we can get the Argentina branch to form a new one with us, that will be phenomenal. And does anybody have any questions about haplogroups or the Black Oliver situation? It looks like we have 4 people in chat, so I'm going to send you a welcome message if you'd like to respond. And I'm going to wait a minute to see if anybody has any questions. And then I'm going to show you what else I've been working on to kind of put this debate to rest. I've been creating on Canva a timeline of records. Let me try to get this to come up. So what I've been doing is trying to produce something that's just going to tell the story once and for all. And so what I've started with is the 1532 visitation of Wales, which documents John St. John of Penmark Castle, or the Castle of Penmark Place, I should say, and highlight. And the problem with this 1532 visitation is that when it was published by Michael Siddons, he said that this was the family of Fawnmon, even though it clearly says they're the family of Penmark Place, which is Odin's Fee and Highlight. This John in 1415 inherited the 3 of the 4 fees of Penmark from Alice Sturry in 1415, and that's how he acquired that's how he acquired Penmark or Odin's Fee. And then his second wife, Lucy Bassett, is how he acquired Highlight. So there is no question at all that this is not the family of Fawnmon. So this is the St. John's of Highlight, and there is no reason to believe at any time we are talking about the DePort St. John family of Fawnmon. They had left Fawnmon before 1532. That's why there is only one St. John family recorded in the visitation of South Wales, because they were not in South Wales at the time. They left the castles of Fawnmon and the other Penmark Castle and Barry Castle to go to ruin because they were not there to maintain them. So this document documents John down to William St. John, the son of Oliver, and Oliver was the man alive in 1532 who gave this information. And with this document, I guess I can give you a better view of this document. Hang on. This is the document in question, and it shows the heraldry of John, and it says that he fought in the Battle of Agincourt, or however you say it in French, in 1415, and then it goes down and talks about his children and his descendants. And this document apparently was in the possession of Governor John Winthrop, and it passed in the family papers of the Winthrop family down to Robert Winthrop, who donated it in 1869 to the Massachusetts Historical Society. And so, at least since 1869, there has been a knowledge that the St. Johns of Massachusetts descended from the St. Johns of Highlight. Now, whatever reason people had to, mess that up, that's on them. But there is a clear evidentiary document that documents the family of Highlight. And so what I'm doing with this is I'm going to go through and show all the documents. So this gets us down to William's, this William, 1563 William, his father Oliver. So this gets us down to Oliver, and then Oliver's son William, and now we have William's probate in 1563 that documents he is the father of Christopher St. John. So that jumps us all the way over here to Christopher. I don't have his in there yet, so I'm still working on this. But this Christopher was the son of this William, and that's documented. There is also an IPM, which is, Inquisition postmortem of William, that Christopher was 17 at the time his father died and when he became the holder of Highlight. And so I'm building this timeline to show that that links to this Christopher and this Christopher's will. Hang on, I have that somewhere. I thought I did. Oh, here it is. So Christopher's will documents, and I have this transcribed on the website, that he is the father of Sir William St. John. So here's his name. He is Christopher St. John. And let's see, here he is my well-beloved son, Sir William St. John Knight. So we know exactly who he's talking about as his son. And then he says, unto Christopher St. John, the son of Thomas St. John. So there is no doubt in my mind that Christopher was the son of Thomas. Anybody who says this is not documented is wrong. This is clearly documented. Christopher was the son of Thomas, and Thomas was the son of Christopher. And Sir William was his brother, and that is very well documented. And it is also documented in the will of Robert Mathew, who was the father of Thomas's wife, Jane. And then there's another will by Lamrock Mathew, who documented his Christopher's youngest son, William, who was only 15 at the time. So he died right about the time Christopher died. So this Christopher died in 1629, and that William was less than 15 years old. So he had died like either right as Christopher died or right after. And that's why he wasn't documented in the will. But he's documented by his uncle, Lamrock, and so he took care of that boy. And so this is really well documented. There's no reason that we should be fighting about it. And then we can move on to, let's see what else. So that gets us to, let's see where I'm at. Sir William is clearly the son of Christopher, and now we have the Guinea Company record. And the Guinea Company record clearly documents that we have right in this, let me see if I can zoom in. We have Sir William St. John Knight, who was the governor of the Guinea Company that was trading in Africa. And then we also have Oliver St. John right here, and Oliver Nicholas, his stepson. And that is the indicator that we are talking about Black Oliver St. John of Marlborough, who married Jane de Port St. John Nicholas, and this is his stepson, Oliver. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because what I'm trying to do is show that we have now documentation from Matthew back to Christopher, and we have Matthias back to Christopher. And so that there is no reason that we should be fighting about this anymore. This is a done deal. As far as I'm concerned, unless somebody can bring me proof that I am 100% wrong, there is no reason that we should not accept that Matthew and Matthias were separate people, and that the DNA is pointing to that, as well as the documentation. So when I get that done, I will put it out there. And let's see what else I was going to talk about today. Oh, I have another document. This document documents Alexander, who is mentioned in the this document. So this says that John has a son named Alexander, and then this document starts with Alexander, and it also goes down to Christopher St. John and his son, Sir William St. John Knight. So here's another document that documents this family, and then here it documents that William had a son named Howard, which is true with his second wife, and it shows that he had more than one children, but they're not filled in, unfortunately. And then here is Thomas with Jane Matthew, and then you follow that line down, and it shows that Thomas and Jane also had a slew of kids, but they did not fill out the circles. So that's the only sad thing about this. This is an incomplete manuscript that was created in the 1600s. Okay. So we have all these documents. Then we also have the grave for Christopher. And it says, I put a transcript in here. Oh, I don't have it in this one. I have it in the one that's on Find a Grave. But anyway, it says Christopher St. John of Highlight, Esquire, and then it says his son Oliver wants to be buried with him, and that he was the squire of King James. So this got really messed up, but I found a transcript of it before it got really messed up. And so I have that on the Find a Grave one, but I need to update the website one because I don't have it fully in there. And then, so, does anybody have any questions about Matthew and Matthias? And whether or not the documentation supports this framework? Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay. The only other thing I was going to show, I thought this was a really interesting family tree on Ancestry, because she has Mathew St. John married to Mary Tinker, and then she has him as the son of Richard, and she has Richard dying in 1626, which is when Black Oliver died, and then she has Sarah here married to John Gregory, and I wish I could understand where all this came from. So if you have information on that, that would be fantastic, because I'm trying to track down the origin of all of this. And I think it was just a misdirect, but if there was anything that might support it, that would be great. I would love to see it. And then also, let's see if I have any other records. So when you come to, this is, I think, Christopher's profile. Yes. So I have Christopher's profile documented, and I have it basically saying that research is complete. And I have written all these different statements in the record, and then I have addressed the genealogical proof standard, and I have put sources with it, and then we have all these DNA. Ooh, I wasn't supposed to show you that. Get out of there, get out of there. I'm sorry. I need to log out. No, I can't log out, because then you can't see the sources. Hang on. Let me scroll down really fast. Let's just refresh the page. Sorry. I'm going to have to cut the video now. Okay, what I wanted to show was that all of this is sourced, and so now I'm going to work on Matthew and Matthias's records and get them completed as well, and hopefully get these profiles fully complete so that the documentation supports this, and that also that we can put this argument to bed because it's long overdue. And I got a message on Ancestry today, this morning, and the lady was asking, she said, my Ancestry DNA and my family tree DNA both say I'm 100% European, so how could I be a descendant of Black Oliver? And that is a fair question, but you have to understand that Black Oliver lived back in the 1600s, and your autosomal DNA is only good, so to speak, 4 to 7 generations. That's your framework. So anything less than 10 generations is you have a slight chance of carrying on the DNA. But every generation you lose 50% of your ancestry from both sides of your parents, or your autosomal DNA. You don't lose your ancestry, but you lose the DNA that links to that ancestry. So you could inherit, say, 50% from your father, but it could be 35% from his mother, which means you're losing the other, 65% of his mother, and then you're also only getting a portion of his father. So every generation, your DNA dilutes. You do not keep 100% African at every generation. That's not how it works. So if his mother was 100% African, the most he probably inherited was 50%. And then Matthew may have inherited 25%, but he also may have only inherited 5%. We don't know what he inherited. All we know is that as we come down the line, we have a trace of 1% that is hanging on for some reason. Maybe to solve this mystery for us, I don't know. But there's at least 1% of African DNA that is persisting in a couple of people. And it's also documented in the census records. So that, to me, it's not impossible for that to happen. It's rare. Like, I don't have it, but my brother does. And this is the same true with other cousins. Like, some cousins have it, some don't. And so it just depends on what was inherited and who inherited it and how much they inherited. So the most Oliver could have gotten was 50%. The most Matthew could have gotten was probably 25%, but we don't really know. And then Mathias would have only gotten 12.5, probably. And then his son would have only gotten 6.25. So even by the time we get to Samuel, it's very small already. So we've gone from 100% down to 6.25% in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. And that's how DNA works. The best window is between 4 and 7 generations. And occasionally you can have something that hangs on, like we're seeing with this 1%. But that is an anomaly. It's not the rule. And let's see, what else was I going to show you? Oh, so here I was going to show you how the record for John Boughton, or Boughton, or Button, however you want to call them, was altered. So this is the family search record for the will probate of John in 1706, and this is a copy of what is at the Connecticut State Library. Now, as you will see, this document that was microfilmed in, let me see, I think I have that saved. Oh, I gotta open a PDF. So the will was November of 1949. So this is the probate records of the Connecticut State Library for 1664 to 1675, and it was microfilmed in 1949. And so what it's showing is that this said Mathew St. However, when you go to the Ancestry version, where did I put that? Hang on, I gotta find it. The Ancestry. Did I close it? Hang on, let me go back. Who was that, John? So John Boughton's record. that I got off of Ancestry shows that it was altered. And to me, that's kind of funny. And it had to have happened after 1949, and whoever did it did not know that the record was kept at the Connecticut State Library. So if you go to this one, here it says Mathias, but you can see if you, let me zoom in on it. Someone wrote this I over the E and then made the A close that used to be a W, because you can see that they're going from, where'd it go? Oh, I have it. What did I do with it? Sorry, I have too many screens open. There's Mathias. Oh, I have it. Family search. Okay, so let's put these together. So here we have, it says Matthew. Very clearly Matthew. Someone changed this one. It's in the Fairfield office to Mathias. And it's the same, it's a copy of the same record. So somebody went in after 1949, made a copy or altered this copy, and that the Connecticut Library does not match it. So these were supposed to be exact copies. And then, what was I going to show you? So when I was looking for the 1665 will of Matthew, and I opened up the index, and as you can see, for the S's, the only will in here is Mathias on page 47, and that is this will right here on page 47, as you can see right here. So this is the will of Mathias in 1669. There is no record of a 1665 will, so that brings me back to my question: how did Orline know that Mathias II married Elizabeth, and how did she know about those 1665 land transaction grants, whatever, that Mathias II had? So that's the issue that I want to answer. I have now confirmed that the Connecticut State Library does not have a copy of the 1665 will if it existed. And what I know about these records is that they used to be a collection of loose records, and then sometime in the early 1900s, they bound them into a book. So at that point, someone could have very easily bound them up and gotten rid of whatever they wanted to get rid of. Of course, that is just my opinion, my theory, but until I can come up with another explanation for how Orline knew these 1665 land grants occurred, that's the only thing that makes sense to me, is there was a probate at one time. And let's see, I think that was all I wanted to cover today, just to show that the haplogroup has been reported. We have one that's still unnamed, which I'm thinking it's because we need another test subject to get it to reveal itself. So if you can upgrade to Big Y, please upgrade to Big Y, especially if you descend from Mathias II. And even Mathias, any of these lines, honestly. But see, even here, we already have 3 test subjects here, and we have 1 test subject here. So any of the other brother lines would be helpful. If you have tested and you can afford to upgrade to Big Y, that would be fantastic. And I think that's all I have for today. Thanks for coming. If you have any questions, let me know. Right now, when I leave.